don't think I have to remind you that Street Fighter is one of Capcom's most prolific series. We wouldn't have the fighting game as we know it now without it. One thing that I really enjoy about Street Fighter is the fact that it shares a universe with a bunch of other Capcom franchises. Before it was popular for every company under the sun to make a shared universe, Capcom was doing it very early in its career. Before we get into this, I should mention that the MVC series is its own separate canon. It's already been confirmed, so I will not be counting any of these games when talking about the Street Fighter shared universe. The earliest example of a shared universe within Street Fighter are Final Fight characters showing up in the Street Fighter Alpha games. Putting Final Fight and Street Fighter into the same universe makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, of course they would. They both have fights going on the street. Even though we haven't had a new Final Fight game in a while, Final Fight is still relevant within Street Fighter. In World Tour mode for Street Fighter 6, aka the story mode, it primarily takes place in Metro City, which is an iconic locale from the Final Fight series. Also, the Mad Gear Gang, the main evil group in the Final Fight series, are very prevalent in the story mode and are the main adversaries that you fight against. And also, Haggar, one of the playable characters in Final Fights, like his face and name are super prevalent throughout Metro City, which is really funny because he has never been playable in a Street Fighter game. But overall, Street Fighter and Final Fight fit together perfectly. But besides Final Fight, there are other games that fit into this universe, such as the 90s wrestling fighting game Saturday Night Slam Masters. You probably haven't heard about it because it hasn't had a new entry in a long time. But what connects it to Street Fighter is the fact that Haggar is one of the playable characters. Before Haggar was the mayor of Metro City, he used to be a professional wrestler that would participate in Slam Master tournaments, which is what this game is about. That's crazy to think about because no way would a celebrity ever be eligible to be a politician. That would never happen in real life. Right? Jokes aside, it's safe to say that Slam Masters is connected in some ways, especially with Haggar making it very clear. Metro City has not just shown up in Street Fighter and in Final Fight, but it's also showed up in another Capcom game, and that game is Captain Commando. Captain Commando has a bit of an interesting history. Before he had his own game, Capcom of America used him in instruction manuals, pretty much as Capcom's own little Nintendo seal of approval. He has a very different design than the one that you may know from his own game and the MVC series. Capcom of Japan must have liked him because they decided to give him his own game. He teams up with a ninja, a mummy, a baby, and a mech. You know, the essentials. But I'm getting off track. Let's continue. The main setting of this game is Metro City, but a long time in the future, which is why you don't see any Final Fight or Street Fighter characters around. They are probably dead. Rest in peace. Another thing that connects Captain Commando to Final Fight and Street Fighter is a character I mentioned earlier, Ginzu the Ninja. In the game, Ginzu is described as somebody who knows the fighting technique of Bushin Ryu. This fighting style applies to a lot of characters that appear in both Final Fight and Street Fighter, such as Guy, Maki, Kimberly, and others. The connection is made even more evident when Kimberly mentioned finding a man by the name of Gao in SF6. God, I hope I pronounced that right. I am already struggling here to pronounce most of these names. Gao is the 40th Grand Master of Bushin Ryu, and also happens to be Ginzu's father. That's how Captain Commando fits into the universe, but we're not done with Bushin Ryu quite yet. Zeku was previously one of the Grand Masters of Bushin Ryu, and was the one who taught Guy all of the stuff that he knows. And if you look at one of his forms, it might remind you of a certain Capcom character. In Street Fighter V during his story mode, Zeku creates a new fighting style that he refers to as Strider. Not just is this a reference to Strider as a whole, but also to the fact that he will eventually create the Striders group as we know it. Also in Street Fighter V, they constantly call him the first Strider, so if you want more proof, there you go. But let's move on from Bushin Ryu and talk about another game. And that game is Rival Schools. Sakura from Street Fighter makes a guest appearance in the first Rival School game. which, unrelated, I think is one of the most perfect guest appearance picks to ever be in a fighting game. A fighting game about high schoolers fighting each other, and Street Fighter already having a character that is pretty predominantly from high school with her whole outfit and everything. It's just a perfect match. It did take a while, but Street Fighter would add a rival school character in Street Fighter V being Akira. But besides that, I think I've covered most of the games that are connected in this Street Fighter shared universe. There is Mega Man, which constantly make references to Street Fighter and vice versa, but I think I'm going to chalk those up to references. There's nothing that's directly connecting them, such as the examples that I gave in this video. The Street Fighter Wiki, which is where I got a lot of my information from, mentions Red Earth on the website, but I don't know much about Red Earth for me to make any, judgments and, say how this fits into everything that Street Fighter and Final Fight and all that have. That's where things probably should have ended, but something major happened in Street Fighter 6. Terry and Mai from Fatal Fury were just added as Street Fighter 6's first ever guest characters, to which I mean first guest characters that aren't owned by Capcom. Terry and Mai are from the Fatal Fury series owned by SNK, and SNK's got some history with Capcom. And obviously that history involves the making of Capcom vs SNK. Now originally, I thought this was non-canon, just like how the Marvel vs. Capcom games are not canon. However, if you look at Terry's description both on the website and in-game, it shows that he mentions fighting the Street Fighter cast around 20 years ago. And while this wasn't exactly 20 years ago, that is relatively around the time of when the Capcom vs. SNK sequel came out. But a lot of SNK's properties are canon to Street Fighter. And also recently they announced that Ken and Chun-Li would be showing up in the new Fatal Fury game. This makes me extremely confused. So if CVS is canon, there's also King of Fighters characters that show up in that game. It doesn't really make any sense because KOF and Fatal Fury have been established to take place in their own universes. There's also the Art of Fighting series, which has already been established to take place in the same universe as Fatal Fury. But then there's also Samurai Showdown characters, and that takes place in feudal Japan, so how does that help? Another thing that I realized is that Morgan from Darkstalkers made an appearance in CVS, so does that mean Darkstalkers is also connected? How have the Street Fighter characters never interacted with any of the Darkstalkers characters? I feel like that would be inevitable. But by far the biggest question I have is, how does Tekken fit into this? There is Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which I assumed was not canon. However, in Tekken 7, Akuma shows up as a guest character. But he just wasn't a non-canon guest character. No, he played an important role in the story. Before Kazumi died, she asked a promise from somebody that they would kill Heihachi. And that person is Akuma. So does that mean Street Fighter Cross Tekken is canon? Does that mean that the characters in Tekken can show up anytime and fight the Street Fighter characters? How come none of the Street Fighter characters interrupt when the Mishima Zaibatsu is up to nothing good? What the hell? Wait a minute, Geese is there too! What the hell? What's going on? I don't know, I probably shouldn't be making such a big deal out of this. It's a really cool idea that three iconic Japanese fighting game series kinda have a shared universe of sorts. It also shows the camaraderie that all these fighting game developers have. It also helps video game communities come together. I'm sure somebody's considering picking up the new Fatal Fury game now with Terry being in Street Fighter. And I'm sure somebody picked up Street Fighter because Akuma was in Tekken, so that they can beat him in a game where he is not the best character in that game. I hope this video got you interested in playing fighting games, because I love fighting games. So go out and play some great ones. So probably not Mortal Kombat 1, or Tekken 8 in its current state. Hey, Unscripted Me here. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. The Dead Rising video is next up on the channel. I hope to get that out before the end of October for the spooky season. Besides that, I hope you like and subscribe, and if I missed any games in this connected universe, please let me know in the comments below. So yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Go!